On the dry fire, I want you to watch the front of your gun. I want you to watch your front sight. Tell me what happens. Got it? Fight.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to AmmoMart.com, where you can find real firepower online. I'm really excited to have a guest speaker with me today, Ben Dewalt from OnSight Firearms training out of New York. Ben, if you could, tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, right outside Pittsburgh, and I grew up, shooting BB guns and air guns and all kinds of fun stuff. This is back when kids would go out of the house and play in the woods. Right. And we would, you'd see a group of us walking from the houses through the neighborhoods, going to the woods with all our rifles, 22s and BB guns and stuff strapped to our backs, which we were discussing earlier. Right. That if you see a bunch of kids walking down the street with rifles today, it's like the whole SWAT team will be on them.
The freak out is on.
But yeah, this is, back in, the mid to late 70s. And, anytime anybody would drive by, they'd wave, "Oh, you guys going shooting? Yeah, okay, have fun." Right. It was not even thought of that we would be up to anything else than just going and shooting, tin cans and crap like that in the woods. But from there, just always had, an affection for firearms, pistols, etc. Mostly pistols. Here I was, 5th grade, had guns and ammo in my backpack going to school,
You were that kid?
I was that kid, yeah. A kid who would bust out, a copy of Guns and Ammo or whatever was the, back then, at lunchtime reading it. And then we had, I grew up on shows like Magnum PI, the A-Team, things like that, where, sure, when I was in grade school, that's what the shows that were on. And, they were all about, gunplay, right. Which, oddly enough, watching all that, none of us grew up to be murderers, mass murderers. But really fell in love with, AR-15s, Uzis, AK-47s, 1911s. And then as I got older, I just stayed interested and somehow fell into becoming a firearms instructor early 2000s. Worked for a bunch of ranges, worked for a bunch of stores, got out of that, the sole retail side of it. And about 2010, still teaching, but started working for a firearms manufacturer located in New York. Built a lot of celebrity guns, worked a lot of repair work for guns, and then eventually around 2017, just got tired of working for somebody else and decided to just go full-time with the teaching. We had started OnSight Firearms training back in 2010, and it was like a weekend kind of gig. Right. And then in 2017, I decided for me that I was going to do it full time. So whereas we have me working full time and then 4 other instructors that work part time, this is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to work for anybody else. Nobody wants to work for anybody else. Yeah. So if you can manage running your own business, being your own boss, why not do it? Why not at least try to do it?
So in the beginning, from the time you started until now, what are some of the major changes in equipment that you've seen, maybe related to guns or holsters or optics? And then, if you know it, the mindset, perhaps, if it's changed at all between your average student between then and now?
I would say 2 biggest things that have really come a long way since back then, even just the year 2000 to now. Holsters, for one. There's this surge of people making really good quality Kydex holsters. And back then it was Blackhawk, Phobos, DeSantis, right. Galco, and then a couple custom gun makers that you really didn't hear too much about. We soon discovered things about Blackhawk and the Blackhawk Serpa that made those a no-no in classes. Phobos, meh. And then the leather holsters, they're great, if you're putting a gun in the holster and you're going to carry it all day and not do anything else with it. But we discovered the more we trained and the more the guns kept coming in and out of the holsters, the more you needed something a little bit more quality. And then you ended up with companies like Black Point Tactical, Dark Star Gear, 508 holsters, C&G holsters, Concealment Express. I'm just name dropping all my buddies here because I have the opportunity to do so.
Understand, no problem.
But we got a really awesome group of quality Kydex holsters that are out now for people to choose from. There's still companies making what we feel are subpar, aka crap Kydex holsters, and I'm not going to drop their names because I don't want to disparage anybody too bad. But there are a lot of great holsters. For good holsters, if you go on our website, which is oftllc.us, and you go in the Friends and Links section, there's all the gear that we recommend. And the reason that we recommend it is that we've tried to break it, and it stayed strong. The other one was the resurgence of optics. The red dot is not anything new. If you go back into the 80s, people had red dots, but they were like this big, and they were, Tasco, I think, was one company that made one. Yeah, they were these giant things that were on these, crazy harnesses and adapters. But, the Hollow Suns, Trijicon, RMRs, SROs, the Hollow Sun 507C and 407Cs and 509s. That's a really, really hot accessory to put on your gun now, and I think it's fantastic. The dots, whether red dot, green dot, if it can help you shoot better, why not do it, right? If it can help you maintain better accuracy, why not do it? Work smart, don't work hard.
Well, I knew when I started training with you initially, optics, I didn't have an optic on my gun, and I felt like I was getting kind of hustled or pushed by people that weren't, at least in my own opinion, perhaps as talented or whatever you want to call it, but they were right there with those optics. Yeah. And I made the conversion after seeing it for one day, and I will never go back.
I fought against it. I was like, I'm an iron sights guy. And then the older you get, that weird thing happens where the eyesight starts to get a little blurry. And, I always thought the dots, get your cheater gun out of here. And then I tried one day, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Makes sense. And then I put dots on everything. So I got dots on pistols. I got dots on shotguns. Got them on ARs, AKs. I even put a dot on a lever action gun that I have. Dots on the remote control for the TV at home. Whatever helps. There's a really awesome meme that's floating around, and it's one of the tape guns, the paster guns for IDPA, USPSA, and it's got a dot on it, and it says, "The future is now, old man."
I love it.
And that's kind of like, all right, okay, cool. If it helps you shoot better, it's not cheating. It's winning. And if you're not winning, then why are you doing what you're doing?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, if you're not getting the best results, why are you doing? Why are you struggling through something? I would say the other thing that has really changed from mindset is people's thoughts on training. When I first got into this, classes were not as abundant as they are. People were not training like they are. It was, oh yeah, I shoot all the time. I go to my local range and I shoot. And that was considered acceptable until you get into your first class and you realize what you don't know. Right, you realize,
sobering.
Oh wow, I never realized that this is what I'm doing, or this is what I should be doing. And to this day, I still take as many classes as I can. I teach a lot of classes every year, but I try to take as many as I can because I find that the more classes I take and the more I learn, the more I realize how much I didn't know, how much I thought I knew, but I didn't know, and then how much more there is to learn. Right? So if you're stuck in your own little bubble and you're not out there willing to learn something new, you're never going to realize how much there is to actually learn. So that's like the biggest revelation that a lot of people, myself included, have had over the last 20, 25 years. It's just like, wow, there's way more out there than I know.
Staying with that for a second, do you have some advice for our viewers about things they should know perhaps before they sign up for a class, or maybe some things that they really want to stay away from for first timers, and just kind of point them in the direction of Say I'm a new shooter and I want to go to my first training class.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best thing for me to do?
Instructor website will pretty much tell you most of what you need to know. As anybody who's running a company now, your website is the first impression that a potential client, customer, student is going to get of you. So this was in a recent discussion on one of the forums that I'm on. A company did not have instructor bios. They had a bunch of cool pictures of all their instructors dressed up in military gear, running and gunning, but nobody's name was listed. There was no instructor bios. It was just like we, but not like, hey, this is Joe and this is his background, and this is Bob and this is his background. It was just like, sign up for one of our classes.
It looked cool, right?
Yeah, and maybe they're great guys, maybe they're awesome instructors, but I like to know you personally. Like, if you're running this sort of group of instructors, I want to know, what's Rodney's deal? What's Rodney interested in? What's his specialty? What does he prefer to teach? And then background, you can go either way with background. Some people swear by a military or law enforcement background, and that's probably really good if you're teaching military or law enforcement.
Right.
But if you're teaching civilians, can you connect with them? Can you relate to them? Can you teach them things that they need to know for their life? Right? I'm not going to sit here and teach somebody something that does not apply to them. Right? So I don't teach vehicle classes, and I don't teach like 5-man, room entry stacking, because for the most part, I'm teaching guys like you, or, guys like your son, who, live on their own, they're by themselves, maybe they've got a significant other that lives in the house with them, and that's what they have to worry about. They're not throwing on battle rattle and storming the castle. So checking your instructor's bios, seeing like who your instructor is as a person. Also seeing who they have trained with or what they have done as far as training goes. There are a lot of instructors out there that I talk to that are like, well, I don't take classes, I'm an instructor. And
Interesting.
Kind of like, yeah, like there's one dude who teaches at one of the ranges that we teach at, and I always say, like, hey man, anytime you ever want to come into a class, come on in. Well, I teach too. Okay, so what? Come and learn. Come and learn something different. Come and learn something new. If you're an instructor and you're not still actively learning and training, then you're doing a huge disservice to your students, because they're going to eventually hit your glass ceiling, and that's all that they're ever going to learn from you. So, like I said, as much as I teach, we still like to get into, all of us that are in the company, still like to get into as many classes as possible with as many different instructors as possible.
Well, I tell our viewers one thing. If you're looking for training, OnSight Firearms training out of New York, and we'll put a link on our video today for how do you get a hold of him. He couldn't do a whole lot better. I've taken a bunch of the classes. Very good instructor, very good skills at diagnosis, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us, Ben.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
Good seeing you again.
Yeah, you too.
Cut!
That was about